Well, hello, everyone that is online. I am, of course, the senior Bill Robinson, all right? Of course, son of obviously BJ Robinson. Glad to be here. It's my first time. I like to start and say, but I am a father of seven, of course. He said he's adopted. I have six adopted and one biological. So we're a large family, of diverse family. So my family has been diverse, since day one. I married a woman who was outside of my race, if you will, my culture. So we brought in children who are also were not, I don't want to say not wanted, but they're harder to adopt. Children who are mixed race were harder to adopt, but we didn't care. We were a mixed race couple, and so we found it okay. Let's go and have a diverse family, and so we did. So we have diverse grandchildren. So we're a mixed bag of America, right? We cover all, I think, all nationalities, all cultures within the melting pot of America.
I would love for you to speak a little bit more to your experiences, particularly growing up in Pennsylvania, and just with your family and with how your neighborhood culture was in being a Black man, and even if you can, how that led you to the military and how that was a bit.
Well, I grew up in a neighborhood that was considered a set-aside neighborhood, right, in Western Pennsylvania, a place called Crested Terrace, where we were, the city was north for sales, but within that city, there was a community of Blacks, okay, that they let us go live. So that was where we were. We all grew up there. It's about 20 miles outside of Pittsburgh. If you've ever heard of a place called Braddock, or North Braddock, or McKeesport, if anybody's familiar with the western part of Pennsylvania. But it was a set-aside neighborhood, right, where we were only allowed to live there for a number of generations, right? So, my great grandparents and grandparents and, myself and my siblings, we all grew up there in this community of Blacks, right? And we had our own school system. We had one church. We had a little mom and pop store. So we lived in that, that was our world until, I guess, in the late 60s, when they started busing us, right? And having us move to the suburban schools, where our school was no longer suitable or adequate enough, all right, to educate us, they thought. So they closed down our little community Black school. The building's still there. Thank God it's still there. But it's no longer a schoolhouse. It's a community center now. But we got moved out to the suburbs, bust out to the suburbs, and that was a cultural shock, where all you knew was people who were brown. That's all you saw, right? You didn't go outside your borders. My town had one street in and one street out. That was it. No stoplights, a couple of stop signs, but that was it. So real small town. But that was all I knew as a child, and so I was comfortable there in that environment. But when we moved to the suburbs, or we had to be bused to the suburbs, then that changed my whole, perspective of thinking, oh, wow, there's white people on TV and Asians, but now I see them in real life. I can touch, feel them, and, and speak to these people. So, it was a little scary, right? That I was not talking to somebody who looked like me, and trying to understand those people was difficult, and trying to get along with them was difficult. We had our challenges. I'm sure you probably all can understand that. We all thought a certain way, and they thought a certain way. So, but I spent 18 years in that one community, right? And so there was violence, there was crime, there was issues, interracial issues in that community. We would go out. Some of the young African American men would go out, all right, and we would search around other females of other persuasions, right? And that was a problem, right, that we brought into the community. So, but I must say, once I got out of my community, I grew up and I matured and became a better person, because I wasn't confined to a certain mindset. I was locked into, there was a Black only world is what I lived in, right? And that world limited my knowledge and my growth. But when I got outside of that world, I began to expand that knowledge and understand other people. And one of my first girlfriends ever was a Caucasian girl, Mary Ann Tweedy. Never forget her name, right? And so that was probably my first love, with Mary Ann, all right? And so, and I think getting out of that community that I was in just broadened my perspective on life as a whole, right? People are all the same, but we're different, but we're all the same. So all of my friends were, you know, they were, you know, Asian American, you know, of course, African American, you know, Spanish American, Native American. So we had all types of people within our community in the school system. But we very seldom socialized outside of that network of school, right? Once you went back home, you stayed in your own little neighborhoods, your own little ghettos, I guess you call them, right? So, but that was my youth. And then after that, I went to the military, spent 6 years there, and I grew even more there in the military, where I met people from all around the world, right? And first where I met my wife in Germany. She's not German, but I met her in Germany, right? And so we had a diverse friends from the military experience. But I don't know, it's so much to say, you know, about my life growing up, you know, as a black man. I very seldom use African American. I don't like that term, African American. You know, I am a man of color. I'm a black man. I'm a proud man. I am not, you know, I'm not a continent, right? I'm not African. I'm not American. I'm not a continent. I am a human being. I am me, right? So I'm a black man, a man of color. I'm proud to be that. So if you want to call me African American, go ahead. I'm not offended by it, but I don't consider myself as such. But my first true experience with I guess racism, when we went to Alabama to visit my grandparents, and that was a cultural shock, where you saw, you know, the fountains and the bathrooms and the signs, and so that was real. You saw it on TV, you saw it in the news, but to see it personally firsthand, to experience that firsthand, I didn't quite understand at age 8, 9 years old, right, in the early '60s. I was born in '57. So I went down there early, and this one particular time we went there was after Christmas, after the holiday. We went down to visit my grandparents, and I had a little red truck that I loved. I had it on the sidewalk playing with it, and this little boy, you know, who was white, came across on his bicycle and ran it over, and he broke it and crushed it. So I was crushed, and that's something I'll never forget, right? My favorite red car. We were not a rich family, so it was quite a sacrifice for my father, you know, to provide, you know, almost anything for us, but he did his best, right? But yeah, so my Christmas morning, you know, truck was destroyed in a matter of moments, because some kid didn't like me on the sidewalk, and he ran over my car and didn't apologize for it, laughed and kept going. Right. And so I must have cried for days over that. Right. But that was my first experience with, you know, any kind of racial tension or anything, you know, negative towards, you know, my skin color that I could really identify with. Was then I was confused, didn't quite understand it until my father sat me down and explained things to me, explained to me where I was at. He said, "I'm glad you didn't try to rebel or reach out and try to, you know, retaliate against the kid, because you may have been a lot worse situation than you were already in." So I let it go. I swallowed it. You know, swallowed a lot of things over the years, you know, just to, I guess, survive, I guess you would say, which, because my father was from the South, and he was one of the men who was like, okay, you have to swallow a lot to survive. And I disagree with that nowadays, but that was then. Today, I don't think the same way. And my children don't think that way either. But no, so, and moving on to today, to make it quickly, I work for the federal government. I worked for Lockheed Martin for 31 years. I work for federal government now. I'm one of the very first managers ever hired by my branch of the federal government in my field of work. You know, what I do is I repair Navy ships electronically. That's my background. But I'm one of the very first. You know, I was 57 years old before they hired anybody of my color to do what I do. So, and I am proud that I was, you know, of the fact that I was one of the first. And I've only hired people of color since then. I've only hired women, okay, well, you know, color and white women. I have not hired any man, any Caucasian man. I have not. And until they force me to, I will not do so, because the opportunity isn't there. When I got aboard, I figured it was my obligation, my responsibility to reach out to women and men and women of color to help them advance their careers within the federal government, in my branch of the federal government, which is, you know, pretty all white male. So I think it was my obligation to make a change wherever I could. and I'm proud of that fact, and I'm grateful that given the opportunity by the grace of God to give me that power or authority or that blessing to do so. But one thing about BJ, I must say, I don't know who knows BJ, you know him personally or not, but when they were small, right, growing up in New Jersey, where you all grew up in Camden, New Jersey. And the first day of school, I was asking his brother, I says, what color are your friends? And he would say, they would look confused. They would look like, huh? What color are my friends? And BJ said, well, one friend had on an orange shirt, one had on a blue shirt, one had on a green shirt. So that's how he saw those young children in kindergarten, first grade. Oh, by the way, he was a kindergarten class president too, if that's possible, but he was. But anyway, put that out there publicly about my son, proud of him. But yeah, so and it warmed my heart for my boys, and BJ in particular, to look at people as people and not as a color. He just saw the shirt they were wearing, the clothes they were wearing. That's how he identified them. They were his friends, and still today, his friends are that diverse. All he sees was what they're wearing and not the color of their skin. So I'll hush now.
I'm going to intervene for the moment. I mean, I just, you got me cracking up, and not that I need to say again, but oh, I love you, because the older I get, the more and more I understand myself from understanding you. And I appreciate you being here and sharing and just being able to add to these conversations. I really appreciated your perspective, particularly on defining Black American and how you apply it to yourself, because that's something that we've discussed again and again in the group. And I really just like the idea and the language of, I'm not a piece of land. I'm not a continent. That sticks with me and resonates with me particularly. And I know sometimes for me, I forget. Like, I know when you were born, but I forget that you had to deal with this world in the 60s, and you still experienced this world in the 60s. And I forget that you had family in Alabama, and that you experienced the South still in the 60s. And the moments I'm reminded of it, like with this, it's almost just like bone chilling. It's like, gosh, this all is still so near and not that far away, not that distant. And then even just some of the factoids about it with Lockheed Martin, with the government work. Like I've known you to do that work, and I've gotten to visit you at work and all of that. But I mean, it's still just kind of, it like pauses me for a moment to hear that you're the first manager, the first Black manager of sorts in your area of the work that you're in, because I know you're not the first Black person to be around there. And I know obviously you've been in the work for decades, that it's still just it gives me pause of like, this is only where we're at still. And it's just a reminder of how much more work we all still have to go. And props to you on your hiring ethics, which, I mean, you and I have been talking about it for the past few years on just our different levels of growth and discovery and trying to enact better change in all this world. And I mean, maybe that's where some of this does come back from kindergarten class president and all that stuff. I want to ask you to, if I can, to just speak a little to your thoughts on things happening now, on this long and crazy year. And again, I know there's so many different ways it can go, but just, I mean, do you have any either big takeaways or big points that you're trying to, that either you've come to realize yourself or that you're trying to help others understand about this movement we're in right now with everything going on in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of things with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Elijah McClain and so many more?
Well, fortunately, that the people that I work with and also socialize with, they're pretty open-minded, and some are conservative, some are liberal, but they're still pretty open-minded. All right, and I say from a Black man, I said from perspective, I said, what have I ever done to you as a culture? What have I done to you? I says, I did not in any manner. Maybe individually, someone may have offended you, right? And may have called you out of your name or may have done something violent against you. But me as a people, what have I done to you? Nothing. Nothing. What has, other nations, the people of this nation, if you will, those people who are considered native of this nation. What have I ever done to you as a people, but welcome you into this land of opportunity that we have? All right. What have I done to you as a black man, right? When we built this country, right? We built this from the ground up, right? From the sweat of our brow, from our backs, right? And a lot of men are in their graves today, right? Because of what they contributed to this nation that we have. What have I ever done to you, right? And that is zero, in my opinion, as a nation. Let's not speak individually that, oh, this guy did this to me, did that to me. No, but as a people, what have we done to you? Seriously, right? Answer that question if you may. Now, I says, whatever your opinions are, I'm open to hear them. And I tell people that at work, I says, nothing offends me anymore. I've been around too long. I cannot be offended, right? It's impossible to offend me. I've heard it all, I've seen it all, but I just want to know. Answer that question for me. And as far as what's going on today, you know, it's just a repeat of what's been going on, right, for decades. And now there is a microphone. There's, of course, what can I say? Social media, right, has amplified what's going on. Right now, there's a camera, there's a spotlight on what's been happening, you know, my entire life and lives before me. So I am not surprised. I am saddened by it. But you know, you would think, people think that things have changed, and they really haven't. They really haven't changed. And the change must come from people of other persuasions, as I say, or other nationalities, cultures than my own, because we cannot change anything, right? We hopefully through dialogue, right, with all persons, okay, we can make change. But those who are, I'll say, responsible, right, for the way things are, you know, globally or in this country, they have to look at themselves and say, okay, what can I do, okay, better? All right. I know me personally, we're speaking of that person, right? I haven't done anything. Like Sally would say, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. No, you didn't do anything wrong, Sally. But, okay, look at your history, the history of this nation, the history of the European culture. What have they done? Okay, you're part of that culture, that collection. You're part of that. You have to own that, right? All right, and say, okay, we as a people have done this, that, and the other. And we need to, okay, change the way we think, the way we act, the way we talk towards people. You know, I know my household is in order, he or she may say, but you got to help other households to get in order as well. Change other minds in your community, right? And within your family, even at times, you know, just try to look at, you know, the plight of other cultures, all right, if you can. It's very, very difficult to understand how it feels to be a black man, a white man, a female, a gay person, a lesbian person. It's very hard to walk in those shoes, right? Difficult. But you must try to listen. You should listen, okay? And take what they say to you, okay, with some kind of an authority, right? They really feel what they're saying, they know what they're saying, right? They're not just making up stories. Listen to their pain, right? Because what they're saying, they are feeling. It is true feelings. It is their pain, not yours. You don't have to understand, you know, but just begin to listen to what's going on, right? And back to what's going on, you know, Black Lives Matter, you know, our lives do matter. Of course, some people say all lives matter. Yes, all lives do matter. But the majority of the lives that are being snuffed out are people who look like me, right? And I think if we are human, if, you know, and we should, you know, be, I guess, I'm getting emotional now if I'm talking about it. So forgive me if I lose my breath here. But, you know, we are, I love the song called Skin Deep, you know, inside we're all the same. And we are all the same. You know, we have to, you know, remove this facade of color, right, from our faces, right, and say, hey, this person's better than that person and vice versa, right? No, we're all the same. We're all the same, right? I don't know who's online that may be a spiritual person. I don't use religion. I say spiritual person, a believer, is that I do believe, this diversity, okay, was not a mistake. Was not a mistake. This was done. This was calculated, all right, to say, okay, can these people get along? Okay, it's a test for those people that if you want to get to the afterlife, if you will, all right, then you have to get along here, right? I'm testing all of you, okay? Can you love one another unconditionally? Can you look away, excuse people from things you don't understand, right? Can you excuse them from that and understand that, well, maybe it's part of their culture. Maybe once I get to know their culture, understand them, okay, the better we'll get along as a people. And myself, I've had to struggle with, understanding, okay, why things happen, to me and to others, by people of all colors, and even within our own color, we have struggles, right? But no, I think I do think that I like what's going on right now. I like that there's a lot of people, I would say, of the white or Caucasian race that are, out there in the forefront, right, supporting this cause. I think it's necessary. I think it'll change will come if the change is through diversity and not just, a black man, black woman out front. Okay, because we'll be ignored. We'll be ignored. Be considered radicals. We would be, just we don't want to comply. We're just want to cause trouble and confusion and whatnot. We're angry black people, right? We're angry. I don't know what's wrong with those people. Yeah, yes, we are angry, but we also have a message too within that anger. Like, listen to us, look at us. All right, we need your help. Okay, white America, we need your help. Okay, to get over this 400 plus year of persecution, all right, that we've been under, and so we need that help.